The African Union, almost all of Africa, has announced their support to Venezuela. And countries, well, like Russia, like China, and many other countries of the planet. Thank you very much in the name of Venezuela, in the name of our people, and in the name of the truth. Because Venezuela, when occupying a seat in the Security Council, will bring not only the voice of Venezuela, but the voice of the Third World, the voice of the peoples of the planet. We will be there defending dignity and the truth. Beyond all this, Mrs. President, I believe that there are reasons for us to be optimists. Irrevocably optimists, a poet would say, because beyond the threats, the bombs, the wars, the aggressions, the preventive war, the destruction of whole nations, one can sense that a new era is arising. As Silvio Rodriguez sings, the era is giving birth to a heart. Alternative trends are arising, alternative thoughts, alternative movements, young people with a different way of thinking. In only one decade, it has now been demonstrated that the thesis of the end of history was completely false. The thesis of establishing the American empire is all false, of the American path. The establishment of the capitalistic neoliberal model is a totally false thesis. What it generates is misery and poverty toppled over. Now we have to define the future of the world. There is a dawn in the planet, and you see it everywhere, in Latin America, in Asia, in Africa, in Europe, in Australia. I want to point out this vision of optimism so that we strengthen our consciousness and our will to battle, to save the world and build a new world, a better world. Venezuela joins that fight, and for that we are threatened. The United States already planned, financed, and promoted a coup d'etat in Venezuela, and the United States continues to support anti-government movements in Venezuela against Venezuela. It continues to support terrorism. President Michelle Bachelet was remembering a few days ago, minutes ago, the horrible murder of the former Chilean Chancellor Orlando Letelier. I would only add the following. The guilty are free. And the guilty of that action where a citizen of the United States also died, they are Americans, of the CIA, terrorists of the CIA. But in addition, we have to remember on this floor that in a few days it will be 30 years of that likewise horrifying terrorist act, of the blowing up of the Cuban airplane where 73 innocent people died, an airplane of Cubana de Aviación. And where is the biggest terrorist of this continent, and who assumed the blowing up of the Cuban plane as the intellectual author? He was imprisoned in Venezuela a few years. He fled with the complicity of officers of the CIA and of the government of Venezuela at that time. He is living here in the United States, protected by this government. And he had confessed and was convicted. The government of the United States has a double discourse and protects terrorism. These reflections to say that Venezuela is committed to fight against terrorism, against violence, and joins all the peoples who, like we, fight for peace and for a world of equals. I have talked of the Cuban plane. Luis Posada Carriles is the name of the terrorist. He is protected here, as are protected here great corrupt persons that fled from Venezuela. A group of terrorists that put bombs against embassies of several countries there, that assassinated people there during the coup d'etat, kidnapped this humble servant and were going to execute me. Only that God stuck his hand in this, and a group of good soldiers and the people that went out to the streets, and by miracle I am here. They are here, protected by the government of the United States, the leaders of that coup d'etat and of those terrorist acts. I accuse the government of the United States of protecting terrorism and of having a completely cynical discourse. We talked about Cuba. We come from Havana. We come away happy from Havana. We were there several days, and there you can see the birth of a new era. The summit of the Group of the 15, the summit of the movement of the non-aligned, with a historical resolution, the final document. Don't be scared. I'm not going to read it all. No. But here's a group of resolutions made in an open discussion and with transparency by more than 50 heads of state. Havana was the capital of the South for a week. We have relaunched the group of the non-aligned, the movement of the non-aligned. And if there is something I can ask all of you here, friends and brothers and sisters, is that we put great will and effort to strengthen the group of the non-aligned. Very important for the birth of a new era, to prevent hegemony and imperialism. And in addition, you know, we have appointed Fidel Castro as president of the group of the non-aligned for the next 3 years. And we are sure that our comrade Fidel Castro will carry the baton with great efficiency. For those who wanted Fidel to die, well, they are frustrated, and they will remain frustrated because Fidel is already back in his olive green uniform, and now he is not only the president of Cuba, but also the president of the non-aligned. Mrs. President, dear colleagues, presidents, a very strong movement was born there, that of the South. We are men and women of the South. We are conveyors. With these documents, with these ideas, with these suggestions, with these reflections, and I'll close my folder, and I'll take the book. Don't forget that I recommend it earnestly, with great humbleness. We try to contribute with ideas for the salvation of this planet, to save it from the imperialist threat, and so that I hope it soon, in this century, not too late, how we can see it, and even better, our children and our grandchildren live it. A world of peace under the fundamental principles of the United Nations organization, but relaunched and relocated. I believe that we have to relocate the United Nations in another country. In some city of the South, we have proposed from Venezuela. You know that my personal doctor had to stay locked in their plane. The head of my security had to stay locked in the plane. They did not allow them to come to United Nations. Another abuse and aggression, Mrs. President, we ask from Venezuela that it be recorded as a personal aggression of the devil. It smells of sulfur, but God is with us. Greetings, and God bless us all. Have a good day.